We're up to the second Mishnah on Daf Kuf Chaf Beis. Amar Rabbi Akiva, and we're talking again about the edus that's necessary to be matir a woman testifying that the husband died. Kishiyaradati linarda la'aber ashana. Rabbi Akiva testifies that when he went down from Eretz Yisrael to a city in Bavel called Narda for the purpose of adding an extra month to the calendar, and that's Adar Sheni, which is called Iber Shana. And it's interesting that you're allowed to do this in Chutz La'aretz. There was some onus that they couldn't be ma'aber in Eretz Yisrael proper because of circumstances beyond their control. And Rabbi Akiva, based on a sugya in Brachos Samach Gimel, was authorized to be ma'aber the shon in Chutz La'aretz because of the principle called Lo Hiniach Kamotzo Be'eretz Yisrael. Matzasi Nehemia Ish Beis Deli. I chanced upon a person by the name of Nehemia who came from a place called Beis Deli. And it could be that Nehemia was looking for Rabbi Akiva when he heard that Rabbi Akiva came from Eretz Yisrael because he wanted to transmit to Rabbi Akiva a certain testimony. Amarli, and Nehemia told me, says Rabbi Akiva, Shamati she'ein mesian es ha'isha be'Eretz Yisrael al pi eid echad. I was told that the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael are of the opinion that in order to be matir an isha, to get married to someone else, we need two eidim to testify that our husband died. And one aid is not sufficient. And that no one disagrees with that. Ella, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, he's the only one who expressed the dissenting view that we rely on the testimony of one aid. Vinumeti lo, I responded to him, reports Rabbi Akiva, Kenat Dvarim. It is true that according to Chachamim, we don't rely on one aid in Eidus Isha. The Amarli and Nehemia basically responded to me, Amar Lahem, please convey to the Chachmei Eretz Yisrael, Mishmi, meaning transmit my testimony, that Atem Yodim Shamadina Mishubeshes B'Gyasos, but Mekublani mi Rabban Gamliel Azakin Shemasian as Isha al Pi Eid Echad. It's very difficult and dangerous to travel and journey over the roads. There are chayalim, there are enemy soldiers all over the place. I cannot come personally to Eretz Yisrael. So I'm asking you, Rabbi Akiva, to kindly pass on this testimony, transmit this edus in my name, that I have received, the I here is referring to Nehemia, from Rabbi Gamliel HaZaken, that we can rely on the testimony of one aid to be matir eishes ish. So it's not just Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava who maintains that position, but it's also the position of the great Rabbi Gamliel. And now Rabbi Akiva tells us that Kishabasi li Eretz Yisrael v'hertzeisi hadvarim lifnei Rabbi Gamliel samach lidvara. The Omar, Rabbi Gamliel declared out of a state of simcha that matzanu chaver l'Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Now this is Rabbi Gamliel in Yavne, and Rabbi Akiva tells Rabbi Gamliel about the testimony of Nehemia regarding Rabbi Gamliel as Zaken. And this Rabbi Gamliel was very happy about this because he was looking high and low for some sort of supporter of the position, the view of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, that we could rely on one aid to be matir and eishes ish. Rabbi Akiva continues to tell us that mitoch hadavar, as we were speaking about halachos that pertain to edus to be masi eishes hameis nizkar Rav Gamliel reminded of a story that took place in his youth. Shenergu harugim betel arza, a certain place in Eretz Yisrael. There was only one witness to testify about their death. Ehisi Rav Gamliel, we're talking about Rav Gamliel Azaken, es nishoseim al pied echad. Now the Mishnah continues to clarify what we call kolos nosafos in Edus Isha. Behuchzaku lios masiyin aid mipi aid. Apparently accepting the testimony of Nehemiah Ish Beis Li, they would rely not only on one witness to be matir ishto lahasi, but also on a witness who quoted another witness. That's called aid mipi aid. So it's secondary knowledge. And mipi eved, and even if an eved would testify that so-and-so died, we could marry off his wife based on the testimony of an eved. Mipi isha, all right, a woman testifies that so-and-so died. Mipi shivcha, and even a shivcha who testifies that so-and-so died is believed. So we have a whole list of people, of individuals who are certainly not kosher liedus, not an eved, not a shivcha, not an isha, not a mipi. This is all psuli edus, and yet we relied on them to marry off an eishes ish. And clearly there must be some convincing or persuading evidence here from the testimony of someone who, technically speaking, is disqualified as a witness. But as evidence, external evidence, we can rely on even an eved, even a shivcha. However, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Omrim, ein masinas ish al pi eid echad. They insist that we go back to the original psak before Nehemiah, and we don't rely on eid echad. V'mater et ish ali nasa. Rabbi Kiva Omer lo al pi isha v'lo al pi eved, al pi shivcha v'lo al pi krov. And Rabbi Akiva says that we will not rely on the testimony of a woman, of an eved, of a shivcha, of a karav, of a relative, all the above, a chashuv l'shaker, and we're not convinced that this is really what happened, that so-and-so died, and therefore his wife could get remarried. We're going to see that this Rabbi Akiva, the Mishnah, is the Rabbi Akiva before, historically before Huchsaku Lismoch Al Kol Elu. So the two periods of time. In period of time, Roman numeral number one, they did not rely neither on an echad nor aid mipi aid, or an isha, or a shivcha, or an eved, but ultimately Huchsaku, in a later period of time, and it probably has to do with Nehemiah and our Mishnah, they did rely on Eid Echad. Gemara asks, "Pisavar Rabbi Akiva pi isha lo v'tanya Rabbi Shimon Elazar Omer mipi Rabbi Akiva isha nemenes lahavi gita." A woman is believed to bring her get from Medinas Hayam and testify that B'fanei Nechtam was written l'shma, because without that the get is not kosher, and she's believed. So we see that she's allowed to get married based on her own statement that in her presence, this get was written l'shma and signed l'shma. And the reason she's believed to say b'fanei nechtam, and be machshir the get is going to be derived from a kavachomer. Uman noshim shamru chachamim ein monos lomar meis baila. Nevertheless, monos lahavi gitein. Zo shenemenes lomar meis baila eno din shenemenes lahavi gita. What does it mean when it says here, Noshim Shamru Chacham Ein Ne'monos Lomar Meis Baila? This is a reference to the 5 categories that we learned about back on Nafkuf Yud Zayin of Sonos. We have Chamosa, Bas Chamosa, Tzorosa, Yevimta, Bas Baila. And yet, Zo, just one second. And again, they're not believed to say Meis Baila, but they are believed to bring a get. Each one brings the get of the other one. And we're going to rely on the kashrus of that get. And the answer is because we're not relying on their testimony, but rather we're relying on the get itself. The get itself has signatures on it, and we're going to rely on her edus together with the signatures on the get and create an emunus, even though they would not be believed as edus mamish. And the woman herself is believed to say meis baili. We're going to be mater ali nose based on our testimony. Eino din shenemenes lavi gita. How much more so should we believe her to bring a get? Because even those who are not believed to say meis baila are believed to say that she was given a get. How much more so the Isha herself, who's believed to say meis baila, she certainly should be believed to bring a get. So we have now Reb Shimon Elazar in the name of Rabbi Akiva, with this Kal V'chomer, that Avos Haget is not Eidus Mamish, and a woman is believed on Avos Get, by Eidus on Avos Get. And even the 5 women who are not Nemonos Eidus, Nemonos Lahavi Gita. Nashim Shamru Chachamim, Hudalo Mehemne, Isha Bialma Mehemne. In general, women are not believed to testify that her husband died. These 5 categories of women. But Isha Bialma, another woman who's not in that 5 categories, is Mehemna. She's believed to say Meis Baila Shel Zu. So we see clearly that Rabbi Akiva himself holds that we're going to rely on an edus of an Isha who testifies Meis Baila Shel Isha Cheres. We're going to be matter her to get married based on this edus. And that's against our Mishnah, which quotes Rabbi Akiva as saying, Ein Messian Isha al Pi Isha. And the Gemara answers, Lo Kasha, Kan Kodev Shehichziku, V'kan Li Achar Shehichziku. There are 2 historical periods. When the Mishnah quotes Rabbi Akiva, Ein Messian Isha al Pi Isha, that's before the Chazaka was established that we can marry off a woman based on the testimony of a woman. So before the edus of Rabbi Akiva, the name of Nechemij, basically, who received from Rav Gamliel Zaken that we rely on Eid Echad, that's the status of our Mishnah. The Khan, But here we medayik from the Brisa from Rav Shimon Elos in the name of Rabbi Akiva that a woman is believed to testify that another woman's husband died. That's only li'achar shechziku, after they accepted the testimony of Rabbi Akiva, the name of Nehemiah, that we could marry off a woman based on the testimony of another woman. And now we're up to the third Mishnah on this daf, which continues to explain the machlok stream of Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. Would a woman be believed to testify that her husband died, or shall we say, the husband of another woman died, and on the basis of that testimony of an Isha, we're going to be mat to this other woman to get married? Amrullah, the Chacham said to Rabbi Akiva, Maisa b'bnei Levi. Now, who are these b'nei Levi? He says, Yeshadiku miloshan ayi chaveirenu lahalon shebnei Levi ena kavana shahayu achim b'nei ish b'shem Levi sheyilo shalu ayi achim el shahayu mishevet Levi. Okay, fine. Tzar ish tmarim hatmarim. That's a city in Eretz Yisrael. I was actually last night in a neighborhood called Tamar. V'chola echad mem v'vi'u b'fundak u'b'chazarosam amru l'fundakis ayich averenu numes, and she responded, Lahem, Mace, your friend, your colleague has died, ukvartiv, and I buried him. And based on the edus of this Pundakis, they married off his wife. So we see from this Maisa that we rely on the edus of the Pundakis, who's a Goya, and we can marry her off based on that testimony. And the Chacham said to Rabbi Akiva, "V'chilot tehei kohenes kipundakis." If the fundakis was relied upon, how much more so a Jewish woman who testifies that so and so died? How could it be that you're saying a woman is not believed? Elavade kol isha nemenes. Shalok Rabbi Akiva sha'amar she'ein mesiyan al pi isha. Amar lahem, Rabbi Akiva defends himself and he says, Kishetehebe fundakis nemenes. And Ochinabi, in a situation similar to that of the testimony of the fundakis, then any woman, any Jewish woman would be believed. And what does that mean? Fundakis, these believe because of a siach lefi tumo. Botzia lahem maklo v'tarmilo v'sefer Torah shahaya biyada. She's telling us a story about the funeral, that they took out the staff of this chaver that died, his tarmil, his briefcase, knapsack, his sefer Torah that he had to carry around with him. That's why they believed her. And they married off her, his almana, based on that testimony. And that's called Mesicha Lefi Tuma, which is a principle that applies to believe someone who would be excluded from Edus, like an Ovedis Kochavim, or perhaps an Isha Yisraelis, and we're relying on Mesicha Lefi Tuma. Omnam im tavo isha lahayr edus gemura. Her purpose is to testify, not meisicha lefi tuma. Lo yikablu es edusa. Afilu he Yisraelis. Because Rabbi Akiva accepts meisicha lefi tuma as something that's even better than edus. Any woman who says something meisicha lefi tuma is believed, like this Fundakis, who is meisicha lefi tuma. Now, according to the Chachamim, Edus Isha is superior to Meseach Lefituma. And that's why they use the phrase Velo Tehei Kohenes Kifundakis. Meaning that if Meseach Lefituma is believed, then how much more so a Yisrael should toid a full-fledged formal testimony nemenis. So I'm trying to figure out the analysis here of this machlokes as to what is superior. Is it Mesiach Levitumo or the actual Edus? In this case, the Edus of an Isha. Not so clear.